right, leadership training. Our American view of leadership seeks the leader with personal charisma, influence, and power. But we need to shift away from this perspective. Ultimately, Christ is the best leader, and in order for you to grow in your leadership, you shall be like him, Jesus, who is already dwelling in you. If you are like Jesus, then people around you will naturally meet Jesus who's alive in you. They will experience him, hang out with him, and fall in love with him. Then naturally, the purpose of loving God, loving our neighbors, and making disciples follow. So the ultimate goal of Christian leadership is Christ-like leadership. Great. Now let me tell you this. Your relationship with Jesus will define you as a leader. The closer you are to Jesus, the more you are in sync with him. This is a simple truth. You become what you love. His character will be revealed in your life as your relationship with him matures. So let me give you 7 Christ-like characters that you will develop when you grow in relationship with him. Jesus is loving. But his love is not just a feel-good love that sounds fluffy and nice. He loved his people so much that he gave himself. So Jesus' love is self-giving and relational. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. I am the good shepherd, and I know my own, and my own know me. Remember, people will only listen to us when they know we truly care about them. So a leader should be ready to deny oneself and sacrifice for his or her people. Whether it be reputation, convenience, time, money, or even success, a leader should be ready to give him or herself. Once you take on a leadership position and commit to it, your personal plans and desires are to take a back seat. Jesus is faithful. His words and his actions matched. He was exactly what he taught people to pursue. His promises were consistently kept, and he was resilient until death. If your words are not reliable, people will not follow. If you miss meetings or take sudden breaks, people will fall away from the club. You want to be reliable, trustworthy, and consistent, faithful. Jesus is righteous. This is what makes Jesus different from all other world leaders. His perfect righteousness. He was sinless and he committed himself to a godly mission. We cannot be perfect, but we can all strive to be righteous and blameless before God. We're not talking about some moral perfection here because none of us can truly be perfect before the Lord's return. However, it is important that we club leaders hold on to unwavering commitment to follow Jesus' righteous example. And of course, we will fall again and again, but when you do fall, don't give up. Trust in the Lord's forgiveness and get back up again with the power of the Holy Spirit. Number 4, Jesus is compassionate. One incredible truth about Jesus is that he is compassionate. There are 4 stages of engagement in responding to a brother's pain. First, you can pity, acknowledge the pain. Second, you can have sympathy, care about the pain. Third, you can have empathy, share and feel the pain. Lastly, you can have compassion, the desire to relieve that pain. As Christian leaders, our hearts are not to settle for pity or sympathy. The Lord calls us to weep for those who weep. That is empathy. And the Lord gave himself to relieve us from the pain of sin and brokenness. That is compassion. Though we rarely have the power to resolve the source of pain for our brothers and sisters, we can respond and engage with them in prayer. As leaders, we don't settle for pity or sympathy against pain and suffering, but respond with empathy and compassion. Number 5, Jesus is forgiving. He gave himself to forgive. Mercy after Jesus' example is an incredible privilege. In your leadership, people will make mistakes. I promise you that. Some of your leadership team members will not meet your expectations. People will forget important meetings and events, and some people might get hard headed in discussions. They might say hurtful things. How will you respond? Will you show mercy as Jesus did? Number 6, Jesus is humble. He humbled himself by coming to the world in flesh. He was in perfect sync with the Father, fully obedient. He knew the Father's will and he obeyed. Who or what will you rely on as a leader? Will you rely on God, who's an infinite source of wisdom and power, or will you rely on your petty gifts and skills? This is usually the biggest issue that club leaders face. Lack of humility usually plays out in two ways. You become overconfident in yourself. You think you're the funniest, most charming, the greatest leader in Christian history. You start dominating conversations and projects. You hurt people with your words and fulfill your own motives instead of what God desires. Your club might even seem to go well at first, but once you leave, the club is gonna collapse and die. In contrast, the opposite also happens with the lack of humility. You are so ensnared by your lack of capability that you stop trusting God. You forget that God is working through you and you stop moving. You want to escape and run away. The club becomes the last thing you want to do. All of this because you stop believing that God is able. What a mess. So being humble and obedient means being reliant on God, trusting that God will do what he desires when you follow his path. Lastly, don't forget that Jesus was led by the Holy Spirit. In Luke's gospel, we discover that Jesus was full of the Holy Spirit, led by the Spirit, and came in the power of the Spirit. Jesus was never alone in his earthly ministry. He was always with the Holy Spirit. Leaders, seek the Spirit. Lift up each member by name every week as you prepare for a meeting. Seek the presence of God in your meetings. Invite him. Remember to lead your club by Spirit-filled prayer. Ask for the Holy Spirit's guidance, discernment, and wisdom. Be mindful of what God is doing in your club meeting each and every meeting. And ultimately, it is the Holy Spirit who will empower you to lead like Jesus. To sum up, remember that we pursue Christ-like leadership. We grow in our Christ-like character as we grow deeper in our relationship with him. May you be molded to reflect his character, loving, faithful, righteous, compassionate, forgiving, humble, and led by the Spirit.